All right, what's going on, everyone? It's Friday, March 25th, and you're listening to The Hustle Daily Show. I'm Zachary Crockett, and I'm here with Juliet Bennett-Ryla.
Hello.
And Mark Dent.
Hey, Zach. Hey, Juliet.
Today, we're going to be talking about something a little different. One of the biggest storylines of 2022 so far has been the ongoing tensions between employers and employees. There are wars waging over compensation, unions, work culture, human rights, and we're going to touch on all of these issues through the lens of 4 companies in different industries: Google, Amazon, Disney, and Applebee's. They're all in the news due to labor issues. We're going to get into that, but first, let's take a quick look at what else is going on today.
Hey everybody, it's John from The Hustle Daily Show. Before we get into the show today, did you know that HubSpot launched an AI chatbot that helps you build awesome campaigns at scale with just a few prompts? It's called Campaign Assistant, and it's a totally free-to-use AI tool made for marketers and business leaders who spend hours a day on content creation. Campaign Assistant will transform the way that you build marketing campaigns at scale. Craft personalized emails, ads, and landing pages in just a matter of minutes. Just pick the content type, add the key selling points, and let the AI take it from there. And the best part, it works seamlessly with all of HubSpot's marketing and sales tools to scale your output across email, social, and more. So AI your way into the most effective campaigns yet at HubSpot.com/campaign-assistant.
The inventor of the GIF has died. Stephen Wilhite invented the file format in the 80s while working as an engineer at CompuServe, and since then, GIFs have become a staple of internet culture. In the wake of his death, a lot of people online have been reviving the age-old debate: is it pronounced GIF or GIF? Well, if it matters to anyone, in a 2013 interview, Wilhite himself said it was GIF, so I'm going to go with that, but feel free to write us a nasty email if you disagree. Apple launched the first driver's license and state ID in its Wallet app in Arizona. Arizonans can now simply tap their iPhone or Apple Watch to present their ID at TSA security checkpoints at the Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport, and the company has plans to roll this functionality out to more states. Up next, Colorado, Hawaii, Mississippi, and Ohio. And lastly, Uber started out with the goal of dethroning the taxi business, and now the company is joining forces with it. The ride-hailing giant has partnered with 2 major taxi technology companies in New York City. Starting soon, New Yorkers will be able to choose a yellow taxi in the Uber app for around the same price as a rideshare car. All right, let's move into our main discussion here. So there's been a lot of beef between companies and employees over the last few years. There's the Great Resignation and workers leaving their jobs. There's a tight labor market that's making it really hard for certain industries to find workers. And in the background, there's been a growing resentment among workers over things like workplace safety, compensation, and mental health. So there are 4 pieces of news that speak to all of this, and I want to start with Amazon. Mark, Amazon has been in a very long, very public fight with its warehouse workers over unionization efforts. What's the latest news on this front?
Right. So Amazon has been kind of having this union fight for over a year. And over the next week, we're going to find out whether 2 different Amazon warehouses are going to unionize. One of those is in Bessemer, Alabama, and another one is in Staten Island. And basically right now, these warehouses have around 5,000 workers, and they will get the chance to vote or have already gotten the chance to vote. And then the results will be tabulated in the coming weeks. And if 50% of them say that they want to unionize, then we'll have 2 unions formed by Amazon warehouses. And that has not happened before. This Staten Island one is going to vote to join the Amazon Labor Union, which is like the first of its kind. And then in Alabama, that warehouse is looking at joining the Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union. And like I said, there's about 5,000 workers at both of these facilities, so they're very large.
Wow.
But keep in mind also that Amazon has around 950,000 employees in the U.S.
And what have we heard about the rationale of workers wanting to unionize at Amazon?
So these workers make about $16 an hour entry level in Alabama. They make about $18 or so at the Staten Island facility there in New York. And they also do get healthcare benefits, but they want better pay. They want increased safety at these places. and just generally they want better treatment. There are horror stories that I'm sure our listeners have heard over the years, stories that I know, Zach and Juliet, that y'all have read about treatment for Amazon employees. And it really comes down to they feel like there's someone over their shoulder, like at all hours of the day when they're working there, and just preventing them from, really taking breaks or even going to the bathroom in a lot of cases. One employee told the New York Times, just recently with regards to this union battle, she said, quote, "I went to the bathroom and had two managers hunting me down to see where we were.
Jesus.
I feel like we're in the twilight zone." And, I talked to a couple of Amazon employees in just in the work that I've done over the years, particularly during the first year of the pandemic. And it really kind of came down to, they didn't complain that much to me about the pay, but it was just about feeling like Amazon just kind of made them feel like children and didn't really believe them in some ways when they're like, I really just need a break, or I'm sick for this reason or that. There was always just sort of this kind of feeling that Amazon just didn't care or would just disregard their feelings, I guess.
So we've also heard a lot of stories of Amazon using pretty dramatic tactics to squelch these union efforts. What are we hearing about their efforts to stop this in New York and Alabama?
Yeah, so the big thing that's come out, especially in the New York Times reporting that we've been reading the last couple of days, is that they're holding mandatory meetings, and they last for about 30 minutes. They'll have a few dozen employees at them, and Amazon management or paid consultants who make as much as $3,200 per day will tell the employees essentially like why they should not form a union. And the sort of overarching message, or at least one that was recorded and then shared on Twitter, was that they were telling the employees that the warehouse would shut down if they formed a union. And Amazon has actually used that message before when the Alabama workers first tried to form a union about a year ago, and they did not. Like I was saying earlier, 50% of workers have to vote yes for a union to be formed, and that did not happen. It wasn't even close. It was something like 2-1 voted no, but the National Labor Relations Board kind of investigated and saw that Amazon was basically using too much intimidation tactics, and so they were able to have a vote again, which is obviously happening right now. So Amazon has just been really successful at really getting these messages across. And Delaware, there was a factory there that was going to form one, a very small factory in 2014, and it didn't happen there either. So Amazon has been very good at getting its workers to not form unions.
Yeah, so the precedent here is that, we've seen 2 failed attempts so far at Amazon coming into this week. But this kind of speaks to a larger trend that's happening in America with unions right now. They've been in decline for a while, right?
They've declined for the better part of 70 years. Peak union was in the 40s and the 50s. And that was when around 35% of all workers were in unions in the US. Now it's about 9%. There's 14 million total workers who are union members. And it's very odd because other statistics kind of show pretty high favorability for unions. Like a recent Gallup poll showed that 2/3 of Americans view unions favorably. And around 58%, according to Pew, think that it's bad that unions have declined. And yet we kind of just see this, like last year at Bessemer, Alabama, it was 2-1 that Amazon union was shut down. If we are to glean what happened a year ago, it's definitely going to be an uphill battle for these 2 unions that are going to be voting right now.
So, Juliet, I want to switch to you here. Obviously, workers in Amazon are fighting for better pay, but these fights are also carrying over into white-collar jobs at desks. What's going on at Google right now?
So Google has an annual survey for its employees, and the most recent one found that they are increasingly less excited about their paychecks. Only 46% of them found their pay competitive, 56% said their pay was fair, and 64% said that their performance was reflected in their pay. Those numbers are not entirely horrible, but they are all down from last year's survey. So in a recent all-hands meeting, Google got a ton of questions about pay, and they wanted to know why the senior execs thought the survey numbers were so weak. They did suggest a few things. One, it's a really competitive job market. So there might be employees that are like, oh, I'm going to go work at this other tech company. or this startup that's offered me a really great deal, and then they turn around and they tell someone they used to work with what they're making now. So it makes it feel like, oh, if I quit my job, I could just get a better one somewhere else. And also inflation. Inflation is hurting pretty much all of us. Pretty recent report that said you have to be making $300,000 a year to not really feel it. And even at Google, most people don't make that. What is actually really interesting to me about this is Google it still is one of the highest paying companies around for tech employees. And even they're growing restless and wondering if they could do better elsewhere. And that mirrors what we're seeing in a lot of blue collar and hospitality industries across the United States, where people are like, I feel like you used to be like, I got to stay in my job, I've got this stability and I can't lose it. But now all across the board, people are like, well, maybe it would be better if I just went somewhere else.
Yeah, it's funny. We've heard a lot that we're in a workers' market right now, and companies are really handling this differently. I know, last week we talked about how Facebook was cutting certain perks like laundry services and the time that dinner will be served at the facilities. Amazon, back in February, doubled its maximum base salary for its corporate workers, citing a competitive labor market. And Apple is giving away more restricted stocks. So it seems like some of these big tech companies are cutting benefits and others are really leaning into them and offering them more to compete.
Yeah, I used to work at one of these companies that is cutting laundry service. And I will say that I was just a contractor there, and that service was not available to contractors. I guess I wouldn't know how many people were even using it. But I remember noticing that there were a ton of perks that seemed almost unnecessary, but I actually couldn't use any of them. So maybe they were superfluous.
This is a very different fight than the one that Amazon warehouse workers are fighting. These are very well-to-do workers. They're getting compensated very well for the most part, right? The average salary at Google is well into the six figures. But is the unrest at Google just over this sense that they can do better elsewhere at another competing tech firm?
One thing that I wonder about this is, let's say you're making a six-figure job, but you're living in Silicon Valley. Can you buy a house? Probably, I don't know, probably not. I mean, down here in Los Angeles, houses are selling for $1.2 million in their little 2 bedrooms, and you have to fight tooth and nail with other people to get one. And then remember when Google was like, oh, if you move to another place that has a lower cost of living, that's cool, but we're going to reduce your pay.
Right.
I'm wondering if people are like, there's really nothing I can do because if I move to this place, I'm going to get paid less. But if I stay here, I still can't afford things because of inflation. So maybe they're feeling like the only option they have is to try to get the most money possible. I don't know. I mean, that seems pretty sad, honestly. Yeah. But that could have something to do with it. But even at Apple, they've also had to bump up their wages for retail employees at the stores. So it seems like it's just kind of an across the board thing, no matter if you're working in an Apple store and maybe that's one of your first jobs, or you're a senior developer that is well into the six figures.